Welcome to the Unpressed Podcast, our weekly virtual cocktail hour between two old friends on opposite coasts. I'm Jenny, a single mom living in Silicon Valley in the land of tech bros, venture capital, and questionable wellness trends.
And I'm Talbot, gay, married, living on the East Coast, dividing my time between New York chaos and Palm Beach drama.
We've survived marriages, divorces, bad highlights, worse decisions, and somehow we're still laughing.
Mostly to keep from crying. So every week we pour a drink and unpack whatever life, love, or our aging bodies have thrown at us lately.
No filters, no pretending to have it all together.
Just two friends, a little too honest and completely unpressed.
Hey, Jenny, good to see you. What's going on, man?
Good to see you. I'm very excited about our topic today.
Oh, right. This is a big one. I think this is something that we all talk about, particularly at a certain point in our life. So what's our topic? Remind me.
So our topic today is work, careers, retirement, transitions, and
all
identity.
The good stuff. Wow.
Yes.
And you're in your home office, which makes it a perfect location for this.
Correct.
Right.
I think this is such an interesting topic because our work is so closely held. It is our identity in many ways, and it is sometimes the thing we hate, and it is sometimes the thing that lights us up the most. And I think everybody can relate to the fact that it is not smooth. And it's not easy.
No. Yeah, I think one of the things I've struggled with many times is staying too long in a job when that wasn't the right thing to do. Have you ever had that experience?
Yeah, that was a big lesson that I learned. So after business school, I worked in high tech for a little while, but my heart really wasn't there. My heart has always been in the nonprofit sector and doing social justice work. And so in 2002, I partnered up with two venture capitalists and we started the Draper Richards Foundation. And our focus was finding social entrepreneurs with amazing ideas and helping them grow their organizations. And I was 30 years old, and I, for the first time in my life, felt like I had found my career.
Wow.
Like I had found my purpose. I was jazzed every day. It was challenging. I had a lot of independence because we were small and nimble. It was perfect for me. I was learning every day. And I did that for almost 15 years.
Wow.
And I was so closely self-identified with that organization, sort of like a typical founder where you think no one else could run this.
Right.
And no one else is going to do
no one is
as
as good as I am. Right.
Yeah.
I'm indispensable.
And I had never not worked in my life. So when I started to become very drawn to being with my children and being home, and draw is a very positive word, I would say I was racked with guilt. Like I would get home at 6 or 7 o'clock and look at my little children and say, well, there's 9 hours of my child's life I will never get back. I literally thought I was just missing their childhoods. And then I would go to work and say, oh, I don't really want to go on that business trip, and feel guilty that I wasn't all in at work.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is a typical thing parents feel, especially women, because we are modeled that you can stay at home or you cannot stay at home. It's not always a financial option. I think, and we'll talk about, I think men have big identity connections with work. I think for women, you get this dual pull.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think I stayed too long. My heart was at home, and so at work, it I was not happy. Do you know
Got
what
it.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also I had been there so long. I'm a startup person. So to do something for 15 years it just doesn't feed my need to be learning new things.
Right.
And I think I probably stayed 18 months too long.
Wow. Yeah.
And I probably pissed some people off, quite frankly, right? Because I wasn't very happy at work and I couldn't see it. And I took that lesson with me. And when I've done other jobs and when for instance, like I chaired a board for 5 years, and I could tell it was time to go. I still loved it. I was still doing a good job, but I could just start to feel that little tickle. And I told them I was resigning and they didn't want me to, but I said it's for the best. First of all, there should be turnover of leadership,
Absolutely.
especially on a board, because you get
Yep.
fresh ideas and
Yep.
energy. But I could just tell that if I stayed longer, instead of doing a great job, I was going to start to not do a great job.
Got it.
Um, but I learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. That
really
is hard.
did.
Right.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I think obviously my situation is different because I don't have kids and we don't have that pull. But maybe I was facing what you just alluded to, which is, I think in some cases, not to be grossly stereotypical, but I do think that men may put a lot more of their self-worth into their defining themselves by their job and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, I was pretty lucky in my early career. I started in advertising. I really loved it. Um, I was given great opportunities. I was given promotions and raises. And every time I thought it was time to leave, it was fairly easy, not always really easy, but relatively easy to get a new job because I was sort of in that sweet spot of like not quite senior management, but not entry level. And those are the
Yeah.
people that can move around more frequently because there are a lot of them, and people always need those kind of people. And
And
so
you were younger, right? Like it's
I was younger.
easier to move around in the work world when you're in your 30s and early 40s.
Yeah. So I would say up until 2006, it was easy for me to stay motivated in my job and get the kind of promotions and get the kind of things that I wanted. And when I was at my last job at the agencies, I was starting to feel that my time had come, right?
Mhm.
I had been too long at the same agency. And I was also starting to feel like I wasn't contributing like I should be at that point. And
Mhm.
so I was given an opportunity to go to a much smaller agency, which was fantastic. And I got that recharge and I had a chance to help run the department and all of that stuff. But then I just started to doubt the industry and I just wasn't feeling that I had a long-term career in this industry that I had spent 16 years in, which is kind of a
Yeah.
weird thing to realize. Um, and so I decided to make a shift out of agency work into in-house, and I went and worked with a fashion company. And I loved that until I didn't.
Mhm.
And that,
Yeah, let's talk about that because I've felt that before.
and it
That you
gets,
just are like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And then all of a sudden it's not.
yeah, well, and we're kind of fed this fable that life is a series of upward mobility steps. You continuously
Yeah.
go up and life is a curve. And when you get to a point where you're facing a conundrum about, is this what I should be doing? Is this what I want to be doing? And if the
Yeah.
answer is not, where am I going next? That sort of becomes a little bit of really a shaking moment. At least it was
Yeah.
for me. And I'd gotten to a point where I just felt like I had done all I could do at the current company. I had moved around a lot, but I was also feeling like I was being stagnated, that there really wasn't much of a trajectory for me beyond where I had been.
Right.
But I was dragging my feet. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it was really hard for me to think about leaving that because everybody sort of identified me with that company. And then when you start to say, well, wait a second, I've now forced myself to continue to do something that I don't love anymore, and I'm not doing a good job at it.
Right.
And
That's when you start to be that guy that they're like, why is he here? It's such a weird shift.
it is a weird shift. It is a weird
Yeah.
shift because you have to sort of take, almost a leap of faith. Now, in my situation, I ended up not having to take a leap of faith because I was laid off. It was part of a corporate restructuring, but that was kind of what I needed. I wasn't brave enough to call it quits because I was just so uncertain as to what was next, that I really
And
needed.
who will I be? Who will I be without this company, without this title? What am I remember when I left the foundation, I was like, what am I going to tell people at a cocktail party that I do?
Oh, that's a big one. That's a
Like
big one.
it was just crazy. I had never not had a career title, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. I was the same way. And so I started a quote unquote consulting company and did some work
Right.
for some small brands so that I could at least tell people I was consulting. I was making zero money, maybe a little bit, not too much. Um, and it took me a while to sort of get my head back on straight because it was really a mentally and emotionally debilitating moment when
Mhm.
you are thrown out of a very comfortable situation. And again, it was exactly what I needed to do because I wasn't going to leave on my own. But when you're forced into that, it's almost even scarier because now you're forced with, am I going to get another job? How do I go about getting another job? What does that look like? How do I interview? How do I do this? And blah, blah, blah. And all at the same time, you still don't have a sense of who you are. How do you define yourself? How do you declare who you are at a cocktail party? Um,
Right. And
and
I think you for years were like, "Oh, I am a retail marketing executive, so I'm going to keep trying to work in that industry." And I think I noticed in you, not right away, but further away from your big job at Ralph Lauren, that your heart was not in it anymore.
yeah, and that was tough. Because I really loved fashion. It's a personal passion of mine. And I was just chasing a job at that point. I wasn't
Mhm.
necessarily making smart decisions.
Right.
I need to get a job, and a job came open and I would get an offer and I would talk myself into it. Right. I can convince myself to do almost anything. And as you said, it wasn't, I would get in, I would learn everything. I'd be surprised at how much I knew. I'd be surprised how much I could change things. And then I thought, this is really not a challenge. And then something
Mhm.
would happen again. And that, in the next situation, a corporate restructure, during COVID, everything went haywire. And
Mhm.
I was let go. And at the time, my husband, Bill, said, well, you should take this time to just like really, really think about what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I wasn't able to do that. So I did it two more times. I chased
Do you
two
think
more.
that that was fear, like the fear of not having a job?
Yes, I think it was two things. One, it was a fear of not being able to define who I was
Yeah.
and not being clear about that and not having a sort of forward path that I'd always had. Yeah, and the second was I probably had a somewhat, looking back on it, I was very nervous from a financial security perspective. And that caused me to make some really unwise decisions. They weren't the right choices for me. And so what I ended up doing was, again, chase two more jobs. Yeah. And then that's, you sort of come to the end of that runway. And after I left my last corporate job, I was like, why am I banging my head against the wall? This is, what is that great quote about madness? Something about,
Oh, yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome, right? Well, that's
Yeah,
exact
insanity or something.
insanity,
Yeah.
right? The definition of insanity.
Yeah.
I was insane. I was insane.
Yeah. It takes yeah, and I'd love us to talk about the transition to a new career or to retirement. I think a lot of our friends are in a career transition time. They either have been working their butt off for decades, either at the same job or different jobs, and they are contemplating retirement,
Hmm.
or people are tired of what they've been doing and they want a career change.
Hmm.
And then the third group are the people who took a break from the workforce, um, especially people who have been raising children and now are trying to figure out, what am I going to do? I've got 35 years, 40 years ahead of me. Am I really just going to play golf every day?
Right. Right.
Yeah. And I think everybody is feeling lost. I have a lot of friends that they transitioned out at 30. They really only had one short career,
Right. Right.
and now they're a little nervous, like, well, who would hire me? Oh, I have a great example. I have a friend who also went to Stanford Business School, and she had been out of the workforce for like 15 years. And she said, I think I'm driving my kids crazy. Like, she just has so much energy and she's so on top of them that she was smothering them. And we talked about going back to work as a way to use some of her energy in a more productive way. She really wanted to get into personal finance. She said, no one's going to hire me. And my advice to her was just start talking about it. Like, that's what I do. If I'm interested in something, I just go out there and I just start talking about it with people. I'm like, people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm really interested in this. She went to a reunion at Stanford and she had a drink with somebody and she told them, I'm really interested in going back to work. It's been 15 years and I want to do personal finance. I want to manage money for people. And the person said, oh, I have a friend who you should talk to. She went and talked to that friend. That friend said to her, we can ramp you up quickly. What we need is your gravitas and your presence to deal with clients. And we are going to teach you from the ground up. And she has this amazing job now out
That's
of
great.
nowhere.
That's great.
So I truly believe, and it's hard because you got to put yourself out there and start saying you want to do something that you think you have no business doing.
Right. Right. Right.
And then and take a real risk and be brave. Do you feel that way with your writing? Just making that declaration. And I think going back to school and doing your MFA is a way to talk about the transition and mentally think about the transition, um, as a little bit of a crutch to get you to the next phase.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, when I left my last corporate job, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And it was not in a really good place. And I did we talked about Hoffman. I went and did Hoffman. Um, and that was really grounding because it made me realize that a lot of what I was doing was just patterns of behavior, which was I was trying to chase the same job because I was thinking that that was where I was going to find fulfillment. And I realized that there had always been a piece of me, even back in college when I acted and I studied theater arts. There was always a real creative element to myself
Mm-hmm.
that I thought I was fulfilling by being in fashion because fashion's creative. But I was gotten to the point where I was just working on the business. There was nothing creative about
Right.
striking up licensing deals and worrying about distribution and blah, 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 blah. That's not creative. Anyway, and I was presented with this opportunity to go and do this writing program at Wilkes University. And I thought, well, now is a chance to do something radically different. What would things start to look like if I just made a complete and utter shift? And it was really interesting because it took me a while. I noticed it probably took me about, because the program took me 2 years to get through. I just graduated. And I would say the first year when people asked me what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
I would hem and haw and say, well, I'm kind of retired and I think I might go back to the corporate world, but I don't know. And I think that that was actually a danger because I was still holding on to something that I felt could define me in a very clear way and that I could do. But if I really was being honest with myself, I didn't want to do it.
But
So
that's okay. I feel like it is so hard to break the identity with a career that sometimes you do need a transition, like a master's program.
right. But again, it's been interesting because it's only been in the last maybe 6 months or a year where people say, well, what do you do? And I say, I'm a writer.
I know, I've noticed that shift. Like, I think in one of our episodes, you said, this is what I do. And I was even surprised because I didn't know that you had completely decided, okay, this is my full-time job.
Yeah. And again, I haven't yet published a book. I've written two. I'm writing a third. I've written a bunch of small short stories. I've taught. I don't know exactly where in the writing world I'm going to be. I really enjoy teaching, but I have made a shift. So then when people say, what do you do? I say, I'm a writer. And
It's
then,
such a risk, right? Because you're making a declaration on something that is like completely you are responsible for delivering on. Not to put
yeah,
pressure on
yeah, no,
you.
I know. And I mean,
Yeah.
the challenge is it's both 100% on you and it's also 100% not on you because it's all dependent on finding an agent, finding a publisher who wants to publish your work and blah, blah, blah. But,
Yeah, but being
um,
okay with that uncertainty is really hard for some people are natural entrepreneurs and they don't mind uncertainty, but a lot of us don't love the uncertainty of, wait a minute, I have to
yeah,
like
it's
it's going to
hard.
make or break with me.
It's hard. No, it's
Hmm.
hard. It's hard. But I will tell you that when I get into a writing mode, I can write. And the next thing I know, that 2 hours, 3 hours has gone by. I haven't even noticed. And it's
Yeah.
sometimes I have to be careful because I'll just write and I'll miss things because I didn't realize that the time was passing because I get so into the world that
They
I'm
call that
creating.
flow, right?
Yeah, creative flow. And, it's nemesis of being, writer's block. But
So flow
right,
is this state where it has to be challenging, not too challenging, but not too easy.
right, right,
And you get really engaged with it and time goes very quickly. And that is sort of the ultimate goal of a job that you love. For somebody, it might be creating spreadsheets.
right,
For other people, it's writing a novel. But that sort of is the holy grail of, am I doing something right now that really grabs my attention and is challenging, but not annoying,
right,
you know?
right. No, I think you're right. And again, I'm not sure when the last time I had felt flow in the corporate world was. Maybe I never
Yeah.
did. I think I did at some point because I really enjoyed it for a long time and I really put a lot of time and effort in it, not just willy-nilly, but because I was enjoying it. But it had definitely been a long time because I would go to the office and be like, well, how many hours left before we can go home?
Yeah, that's a clear sign
Right.
that you're not in the right job.
Right. But it is, when I'm get into a flow, I get annoyed if people want to talk to me. Like Bill will come in and say, blah, blah. I'm like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. I'm in the zone
Uh-huh.
and you just need to like, let me be. But when you get into a zone, then you don't want to come out. It's just this interesting, really fascinating mental space that you get into because you are just jiving on what it is that you're doing. And there's something that is feeding your soul, feeding your creativity, feeding your mental state, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it's hard for us all. I was talking to a buddy of mine from college. I've known him a very, very long time. He's had some ups and downs in his career, but he has a really big job right now, really big job. And we had dinner the other night, and he said, "I'm not sure I want a really big job."
Mm,
Right? He said, "And I'm finding it odd because my entire life I chased the big job. And now I've got it, and I'm not sure that that's really what I want. And maybe I want a small job." It's just so interesting because as you said, we're getting to a point in our lives where we're questioning, which is a really interesting thing. It's like being a second adolescence, right? We're questioning stuff around us, like, who am I?
yeah.
What is that? All this interesting stuff. And for the first time, we're really shaking the tree and saying, is this all there is? Is this the right thing to do? And that's really scary. That it can be a really
Yeah.
scary.
I have friends where they have been working their tails off for 30 years, plugging away, and they are dreaming of not working. And I really appreciate that. Like, they did not take a break in the middle. They have not made a career transition. But I think some of them are thinking, I'd like to do something, but what is it? And my friends who took time out of the workforce to raise kids are wondering, what can I possibly do? And I really believe in taking an inventory of what you find fascinating right now. Like, what podcasts are you listening to? What books are you reading? What do you talk about with people? What really fascinates you? And like for me right now, what I find really fascinating is talking about the cross sector of health and psychology.
Right, right,
Like,
right.
that is just what I read about, what I study, what I talk about.
Well, you're doing that program at Harvard because of that.
I said, I have made good career choices by following what I'm interested in.
Right.
That has served me well. So right now I'm really interested in health and psychology. What am I going to do with that? And I did not feel confident to just go for it.
Right. Right.
So I'm like, well, who am I? I don't have a PhD in psychology. I'm not a medical doctor. What the hell am I going to do? So I did what you did, which is I said, okay, I'm going to go do a master's program. That'll give me ideas. It'll give me some legitimacy. And the program at Harvard has been fantastic. It's
Yep.
been very hard, but it's been fantastic. And it has done exactly what I hoped it would do, which is it has introduced me to ideas, it has introduced me to people, and it has helped me understand how I might work in this space. And I actually met a doctor who was one of my teachers in a women's brain health course, and she focuses on the cross sector of nutrition and brain health. And I'm now helping her produce a podcast called The Brain Health Kitchen, which is based on her really amazing Substack that she's been writing for years. And but it took me, this has been, a few years, maybe 3 or 4 years where I have known I want to work in this sector until I figured out how I'm going to take the next step. But I felt like I really sort of floundered in the pool for a couple years before I was like, okay, what is the next step I'm going to take? And
Right.
it really does help to talk about it because people will give you ideas.
Absolutely.
People will be like, oh, did you think of this? Did you think of that? Being okay with not knowing what the next step is, that's hard. That's, when you think of retirement or you think of like life between 60 and 90, I mean, it's a lot of life to live,
It
right?
is. It is a lot of life.
Um, I think for some people, playing golf every day and having a cup of coffee on the porch sounds dreamy. Like,
Yep.
they just are like, that would make me super happy. And other people would say, I will drive myself crazy if I do that. I'll drive my spouse crazy. Like, when you think of those later years, what sort of seems like, a kind of life and flow and how work fits into it sounds good to you?
Yeah, and I think that's when I started to really consider writing. It's one of those things that I thought, I can do that for the rest of my life, right?
Mhm.
I can write. Even if I never get published, I can write every day. I can write a blog. I can do a podcast. There is stuff that I can do within that realm that I'll be able to do as long as I can get up in the morning.
Mhm.
Um, and I could teach. For me, I think one of the things I really found a new passion for, and I've sort of played with in the past, I've taught before in the past, but I had to teach a course as part of my MFA program. And I really loved it. I really loved it. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that that's not something that I need to do 40, 60, 80 hours a week. I can pick up
Mm-hmm.
a class at a community college, or I can do an adjunct professorship. I don't want to become a tenured professor track kind of employee, faculty
Mm-hmm.
member. But that's something that I can do and could do for a very long time, and would give me the flexibility to still do things that I would like to do without forcing me back into a corporate world. So I think for me, where I've started to realize is that my retirement life is going to be inextricably linked with what this new career is. I'm still going to have something that is going to challenge me, that is going to make me interesting, that's going to keep my brain nimble, that'll give me opportunities to meet and mentor other people, gives me something to say at a cocktail party, which I know is important for me, like it or not. But, I like to have an identity, and all of that can happen being a writer, and I can still be retired. So for me,
Yeah.
that's how I see it. But I don't know what is your viewpoint on it? Like, how do you see retirement?
Yeah. I once read a book, an Arthur Brooks book. I think it was called From Strength to Strength. And he lays out two types of intelligence. So the first half of life, and he sort of makes the transition in your early 40s, he describes that as fluid intelligence, where you are building wisdom, relationships. You tend to be very good at connecting the dots, and inventing things. And then later half of life, he called crystallized intelligence, which is pattern recognition, mentorship. You sort of have developed the knowledge that you're going to develop, and now it's about translating that knowledge to other people. And he gives two examples of famous people, one who made the transition in his career and one who didn't. So the first example he gives is Charles Darwin. And Darwin came up with his Origin of Species. He was young, he was less than 40, I think. And he spent the rest of his career basically trying to figure out genetics, and he never got there. And he died sort of really unhappy and unfulfilled. He couldn't understand why in the second half of life he couldn't be as inventive. I think Arthur Brooks says that like 90% of Nobel Prize winners created their theory, their invention, wrote their book before 43. They might
Interesting.
win it later, but if you say, like, what are they winning it for? It's a theory they created when they were 30 or 35. I guess Charles Darwin died really unhappy.
Hmm.
Then he tells the story of Johann Sebastian Bach, who obviously an incredible composer, created the fugue. And he did not create any innovative musical form in the second half of life, but he had, I think, five sons. A lot of them were composers, and he drew great joy from helping them with their careers. And he
Interesting.
wrote a book, the seminal book on the fugue.
Right.
And he was a very happy, apparently a very happy man. And he had transitioned into being a mentor
Right.
and to synthesizing data to teach it to other people, that crystallized intelligence.
Hmm.
And Brooks's point is, if we don't recognize that our intelligence has changed, like what we often do is we label it, oh, I just don't want to work as hard anymore.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to put in as many hours. I don't understand why I don't have the drive I used to. I think he would argue it isn't drive. It is that you are frustrated that you can't think and invent and connect the dots like you used to. and you're not embracing your new skill set where you could be wildly successful.
That's
So
so
I found
interesting.
that super interesting because I feel like a lot of people, especially ambitious achievers, feel bad the second half of life because they don't feel like they are achieving
Anything.
as much.
Yeah.
And it is a time to say, I need to shift my career so that I'm using all that stuff that I've learned, all the pattern recognition, and I may not be the gunner in the front, but I can be very influential if I embrace what I am good at this point in my life. And I don't beat myself up because I'm not 30 years old doing the things that I used to be able to do at 30.
I love that. And I think you just described what I feel is, I'm working right now with a young writer on his book, and I'm finding it so fascinating and so enjoyable to just go through the work with him and say, well, here's some thoughts. So I think maybe my brain is finally crystallizing, but it also goes back to, I mean, for eons, we always appreciated the wisdom of the elders, right? Because they were at a
Mhm.
point in their life where they were crystallized and they were passing on knowledge. And I think we've walked a little bit away from that, but oh, well,
Well,
a
for
lot.
sure. It's really interesting that we really need our elders. And we know in Western societies, we just don't honor and use our elders. And something like I hear my parents' generation saying is, I don't feel useful anymore.
Right.
That seems to be a real problem, is if you're not honored for what you know, you sort of lose steam a
Right.
little bit.
Hmm. Interesting. All right.
Yeah. So I think one of the goals for me is I can't depend on other people asking me to the table. Right? That may or may not happen. I feel a responsibility to set my own table.
Now I feel like I have to get back and write. I know, I was going to say, I just have to go back and finish writing this book. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, writing is
right.
interesting, but
Every job has something that's not fun.
that's why they call it work.
All
All right,
well, get
Jen.
back to work.
You too, darling. I'll talk to you
All right.
soon. All
Talk
right.
to you soon.
See you. Bye-bye. So if you enjoyed listening to that, please support us by subscribing to our channel and by telling everyone you possibly know. You can email us at theunpressedpodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word, The Unpressed Podcast, no spaces. You can also follow us at Instagram. Our handle is @unpressedpodcast. Thanks so much.